Going back to your experience in private equity and then transitioning into law. So you've worked with business executives and now law firm leaders, right? What is the one leadership trait or decision-making habit that you think aggressive growth-minded attorneys should adapt more of as a lesson from working with business executives in the private equity space?
There's so many flavors, shapes, and sizes of these law firms out here. And the ones that stand out to me and the leaders that really take a business mind to practicing law and running a law firm, it really comes down to prioritization and strategic research management. And that's a skill set that I think is transferable across a lot of other businesses, and other great executives I've worked with over the years also had those traits. But ultimately, in any successful business, regardless of what industry, there's a million things coming at your team. Challenges, opportunities, new ideas, distractions that can pull you off course. Having real clear alignment on what truly matters, and then allocating your resources, time, money, people accordingly, that's absolutely critical. It's all about discipline, avoiding chasing every new thing and staying focused on the core goals. And that applies directly to law firms.
If you're an aggressive, growth-minded attorney looking to transform your law firm into a thriving business, you're in the right place. Welcome to the AGM Attorney Podcast, the #1 podcast dedicated exclusively to aggressive, growth-minded attorneys. Each episode will deliver actionable strategies and insights to help you attract ideal clients, scale your law firm, and dominate your market. And now, here's your host, Josh Konigsberg.
Welcome to the AGM Attorney Podcast, where aggressive, growth-minded attorneys discover proven strategies to transform their law firms into thriving businesses. A special thank you to our sponsor, Law Firm Marketing Pros. They get you more leads, more clients, and more profits. I'm your host, Josh Konigsberg. Let's get aggressive. Our guest today is Josh Hyatt. He is the president and CFO of Expert Institute, a leading expert consulting firm for law firms. He has previously worked in private equity at Harvest Partners and began his career in investment banking at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Today, Josh brings a strategic, data-driven approach to helping attorneys leverage expert insights to win stronger cases and grow their firms. So, Josh, just quickly tell us how your career in investment banking and private equity, like you started there, but what then led you to shift into the legal space and join Expert Institute?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And first off, appreciate you having me on the podcast. So the move was a very deliberate move. In private equity, you're constantly looking at hundreds of businesses. You only end up investing in a handful of those businesses. I genuinely enjoyed that process, diving into new industries, working with executives on growth and solving tough problems they're facing. It was great, and I wouldn't be where I am today without that experience. But after 5 years of the private equity world and that role, I started feeling a pull towards something more entrepreneurial and earlier stage. I wanted a chance to really help build something significant and get into the business at the ground floor. So through my network, I met our founder and CEO, Michael Talvey, and the Expert Institute story just clicked with me instantly. I looked at other legal businesses in the past, but the plaintiff consumer-facing litigation market was totally new territory. After a few months of speaking with Michael, lots of deep conversations, 3 things really sealed the deal for the business. First, there's this huge obvious gap, a lack of specialized vendor support for plaintiff firms. There's a huge opportunity there. I'm sure we'll speak more about it. Second, Expert Institute wasn't a startup gamble. It had a solid 10-year track record, proven success, and a significant market opportunity in front of it. And third, honestly, this is maybe the biggest driver for me, the mission of the company and helping people get justice against larger insurance companies that they were facing for catastrophic events and industry injury that had happened to them. That really resonated.
So very exciting, by the way, and having a little bit of experience in the space. I really appreciate the fact that you chose a company that had a 10-year track record of success that gives you more security and a tremendous opportunity. And I agree with you. I believe there's a lack of quality support in your space, and it does present a tremendous opportunity. So can you tell the audience what types of firms that you help by providing the best experts, and couple examples of some experts.
Yeah, sure thing. So we really built our foundation specifically in the consumer-facing plaintiff market, and more specifically, personal injury and medical malpractice firms. Our clients handle all types of cases, from single event cases where one individual was harmed to mass tort cases, which are similar to class action lawsuits, but usually involving the medical side of the world. The common theme in our industry is that the cases often involve very sad, catastrophic injuries. The last item I would note here is these firms all work on contingency, meaning they only earn revenue when a case settles or when there's a verdict, and they take a portion of the settlement. They are not the hourly fee attorneys many people out there are used to seeing day to day. And the experts can range a pretty wide spectrum. We have medical experts and non-medical experts. I always like to throw out an example here. So let's say someone was walking down the street, and again, disclaimer, they're often catastrophic injuries. Let's say someone was walking down the street in New York and scaffolding from a building that was under construction fell on them. In that situation, you might need a neurologist to talk about the injuries sustained to that individual's brain from something like that falling on them. You might need a building code expert to talk about what code was required at the building and where there might have been negligence there. And you also might need a construction company or a scaffolding company expert to opine on the fact that they did not set up the scaffolding like the best in class standards. And all three of those things ultimately lead to a case for the plaintiff side and justifying the harm that was instilled on this individual.
Makes perfect sense. So what are the types of challenges that you typically see a PI firm face, especially when they're aggressively growing to or handling a complex litigation?
Yeah, great question. So fundamentally, we help law firms strategically outsource functions that aren't, their core business. This frees up their attorneys to focus on what they actually do best, which is practicing law. You see a lot of successful attorneys, they have strong case volumes, which is great, right? But they hit a ceiling when they try to scale their business. A common instinct for business owners is that scaling means just hiring more lawyers, throwing more people at the problem. But that's often not the most efficient way or the most cost-effective way to actually grow your business. So we offer a solution for that and allow people to scale their business if they're in the earlier stages, or allow larger firms to double, triple the size of their business. We let them offload specific non-core parts of their case process. So this means they can grow significantly without taking on all the extra staff and overhead costs. And our core value is twofold. First, drive more revenue through better case outcomes, because again, going back to what I said earlier, they're contingency fee lawyers. Their revenue is driven by higher settlement outcomes for their clients. And second, enabling scalable growth without the cost of additional headcount and hires.
So that's a great segue into this next question. So can you break it down on how does the Expert Institute platform, how does it work, and how do you match attorneys with the right experts for their cases to get the maximum settlement or verdict?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 core products today, and a few in the works that I can't get into now, but stay tuned on them.
I'll have you back.
Exactly. So first, the easiest way I think to describe this is if you take a step back and you think about the case life cycle. Our first product comes right at the very start. So our clients typically get leads from injured parties. You obviously see the clients' names on billboards. They have websites, they have intake forums, and someone who's been through an accident might call one of our clients, describe the accident. And the first step for our clients, the law firms, is to obtain the medical records on behalf of the injured party so they can assess the damages or the injuries that were sustained. So the first product that we have comes right at that point. It's called medical record review. So you can think of it as a preliminary check on case merit for the law firm. Again, going back to what I said earlier, they're contingency fee focused law firms. So they do not want to waste time and money on cases that aren't going to prevail. And in this product, we built a huge network, over 70 doctors across 45 different specialties, all of them onshore, all of them MDs. And these doctors review the medical records for our law firm clients. And then they consult with the law firm about whether the case actually has merit or not and talk about the pros and cons of the case. Now, crucially, a very important part of this is these aren't the testifying experts that will come in another product. So there's no retainer, there's no hourly fee for this initial review. We offer this at a fixed price, and it basically helps these firms filter out weaker cases early on so they can focus resources where it matters and inform what type of experts they should retain for the stronger cases. We've reviewed more than 10,000 cases a year just solely in this product. Our second product is where Expert Institute started 15 years ago. It's our foundation. It's called Expert Search, but it's basically a matchmaking model where we help our clients find the best expert witnesses out in the US. For this, we use a proven process. It's data-driven, it's technology-backed, and then we also have a people element to it. We have a team of over 50 researchers that are actually all sitting in front of me here in our office in Milwaukee. And their job is to find the best possible expert witness for the case anywhere in the country. They do it fast. It only takes a couple days. And we do it with a transparent one-time fee, which makes us a lot more cost-effective than other vendors in the space that also focus on the similar offering, but they pile on excessive hourly markups. We're finding experts for over 20,000 cases every single year. And at this point in our history, we've done over 300,000 cases and expert matches over the 15 years we've been around. Lastly, the third product we have, so going back to injured party comes to the law firm, they go through a medical record review, they decide that the law firm is going to take on the case. They hire an expert witness to do research and report writing. And then the third product comes into play, which is called Radar, often during time of deposition or a trial. This is our newest product, and it's been growing incredibly fast. It uses generative AI to pull together and analyze really deep information on the opposition side's expert witnesses. Firms typically order this just before a deposition or a trial where the opposition expert is going to give a testimony, and it gives them a huge strategic edge. Radar digs through dozens of data sources. Many of them are expensive and hard to get your hands on. It cleans up all that data, structures that data, and makes it easy for the attorney to digest it. And it basically outsources dozens of hours of tedious research that associates and paralegals are doing today, hunting through LexisNexis, Westlaw, Google, publication, social media. And it frees up time spent on this manual data gathering to focus on purely case strategy. At this point, that product's only a few years old, and we've built over 10,000 of these expert radar profiles on expert witnesses just since we launched it. And firms are seeing the value in this very quickly.
Yeah, certainly it's giving you the plaintiff side a competitive advantage going into those mediations and depositions. So if you could put it together very, very quickly, like connect the dots on the three as to why it's more strategic and more efficient. Well, you kind of already said that it's why it's more efficient, but just very quickly in a summary, like 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah, so efficient, it's more efficient because we can get it done quicker. The quality is better. We're going to get more information in the Radar product. We're going to find a better expert in the Expert Search product. And then the last piece, and the most important piece in my mind as a business owner of one of these law firms, is it's a non-core function. And if you're operating on contingency, like most of these plaintiff attorneys, you want to outsource more of those non-core functions because you're very focused on your bottom line and the cost. And this is a function that a paralegal and associate shouldn't be doing. They should be focusing on case strategy and using this as leverage to spend more time on case strategy.
Well said. Okay, so let's talk about lessons from the experience over the years. So from your vantage point, what separates the law firms that use expert resources like Expert Institute from those that underleverage them?
Yes. So some of our biggest clients, we have been ingrained into their law firms as part of their workflow. Every single case that comes in the door for them, they use a medical record review rather than have associates or paralegals or partners even review medical records that isn't in their background, right? Doctors should be reviewing the medical records. Every case comes through that comes through a medical record that makes sure 2 things. 1, they're not spending time on cases that aren't going to settle. Two, for the cases that do get a green light or they are going to take on, they know what type of expert to go work with in the next step. Then they use us to find expert witnesses. And a big part of the expert witness market is not using the same expert over and over again. If you do, then that shows up as perceived bias of you working with the same expert and you paid them a lot of fees and worked with them on the same cases and they've never contradicted your opinion on a case. So they'll always use us to go find the best expert in the country and increase the probability of a better outcome. And then lastly, ensuring that whenever they have to do research on an opposing expert or even their own retained expert, they're using us for that radar product because ultimately that's not the best use of time for their associates or paralegals.
It makes perfect sense. So going back to your experience in private equity and then transitioning into law. So you've worked with business executives and now law firm leaders, right? What is the one leadership trait or decision-making habit that you think aggressive growth-minded attorneys should adapt more of as a lesson from working with business executives in the private equity space?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been an interesting dynamic being in this market. As I mentioned early on, I had no exposure to the plaintiff consumer-facing contingency fee lawyer market prior to coming here. And there's so many flavors, shapes, and sizes of these law firms out here. And the ones that stand out to me and the leaders that really take a business mind to practicing law and running a law firm, it really comes down to prioritization and strategic research management. And that's a skill set that I think is transferable across a lot of other businesses, and other great executives I've worked with over the years also had those traits. But ultimately, in any successful business, regardless of what industry, there's a million things coming at your team. Challenges, opportunities, new ideas, distractions that can pull you off course. Having real clear alignment on what truly matters, and then allocating your resources, time, money, people accordingly, that's absolutely critical. It's all about discipline, avoiding chasing every new thing and staying focused on the core goals. And that applies directly to law firms. We help them avoid wasting time on weak cases. We help them outsource the non-core work here on the stronger cases and make sure that they can keep the people that they invested time and money into hiring and training, focusing on what moves the needle, which is practicing law, driving cases forward, and obtaining better outcomes for their clients who have often incurred irreparable harm.
Right. And I smile because we call it shiny object syndrome, right? We see it every day, right? So
it can be paralyzing.
Oh my gosh. So can you share a story or an example of a law firm, without using names, obviously, that used your platform that dramatically strengthened a case or improved the client outcome significantly?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can share names here because it's all publicly available information.
Okay.
And we did a testimony on this client recently. And I think it's worth highlighting.
Okay.
So a recent example of a case was where we worked with one of our clients named Jason Kafori out of Oregon. We helped them secure a $20 million verdict for Jake Gleason, who is a former goalkeeper of the Portland Timbers team in the MLS. It was a medical malpractice case. Jake had a shin injury that needed surgery, but during the surgery, tragically, the doctors failed to properly sterilize a surgical plate that they implanted, and this led to a horrific infection. It required 14 more surgeries, and sadly, it ultimately left Jake with lifelong chronic pain and completely ended his promising soccer career. It's a truly devastating outcome for Jake. We connected with the law firm, our client here. We put them in touch with a really top-notch orthopedic surgeon, someone who's highly credentialed, but also a specific experience working with professional sports teams. That was key for establishing the standard of care and obviously the significant damages that were involved. But the real aha moment in this case, the needle in the haystack, came from our radar product. We delivered a radar profile on all of the defense experts, as we normally do. In one of those radar profiles on the defense expert that was a sports agent, this expert had testified that Jake could have only made hundreds of thousands of dollars more over the remainder of his career. With radar, we look at all the historical cases that an expert's been involved in and what their testimony is. And here we uncovered a transcript from a completely different case in 2006. And in that transcript, the same expert had testified that an athlete in a similar circumstances could have realistically earned $10 to $20 million over the course of their career. Finding that specific piece of testimony immediately put the defense completely on their back foot during the trial. It was a pivotal moment for the trial. It had a huge impact on the jury, and it directly contributed to that fantastic outcome for Jason's firm, but most importantly, for Jake Gleason, who's the injured party who has to deal with these injuries for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So it really just illustrates. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, to me, there's no amount of money that's worth, first of all, ruining a career, but second, to have to deal with the chronic pain for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at that point, it's not about the soccer career, right? It's more about quality of life. He was very, very young, and he has to deal with this for dozens and dozens and dozens of years.
Yes. Well, great work. So let's talk about industry trends and what's next. So within the legal landscape, and it's shifting very quickly with tech and AI, we all know that. You've got litigation, finance, data. What trends are you seeing and how the top law firms are evolving?
Yeah. Well, you hit on litigation finance. I think we should touch on that. And the other one that's top of mind for everyone, and I feel like you can't escape a conversation these days without talking about it, is AI. And it's been a whirlwind. It's been a crazy couple of years for the AI trends, new players in the market. And frankly, like even in my seat, I'm getting marketing emails left and right about some new AI technology, and it can be overwhelming for business leaders. AI creates a ton of potential for law firms, but broadly for businesses out there. And it can be a major asset for plaintiff firms who are trying to scale up and manage their costs. But there's a crucial caveat. You see a lot of these startups overpromising on what AI can actually do. And AI hallucinations, meaning when the model gets something wrong, is making stuff up in legal work that can create massive reputational risk and serious problems. I've seen countless number of articles where there was a legal case and it made its way in front of a judge or a jury or in a deposition where AI hallucinated and they relied on the wrong information. And at Expert Institute, we've been around for 15 years, long before AI was a big buzzword. And we use it here to strategically boost quality and increase the speed in our existing process, but we never rely on it blindly. We always have human oversight involved. We always have QC involved. And then the benefit for us is we have a lot of humans that have been involved in a lot of these processes historically that can train the models and AI. The other big trend you hit on there was litigation finance. Another one that can be extremely powerful, especially for contingency fee lawyers in this market, but you have to be careful with it. The smaller firms, it's great for them because it levels the playing field and allows them to spend money like the larger firms when they're litigating cases. But if firms aren't too careful and they take on too many weak cases, but they also take on a lot of debt via litigation finance, they can get into serious financial trouble quickly. So you have to use it wisely. You have to make sure you're precious with what cases you're taking on and not using litigation finance as a way to just take on more cases at all costs.
Well said. And so the AI component really comes into play from my perspective as the shiny object syndrome I talked about earlier, right? Because there's a lot of bells and whistles that you see. And again, the AI hallucinations are real. And the way you stated it, for the way that Expert Institute manages it, is the absolute perfect way. And we follow that same model. So what's next for Expert Institute? Like, what are the new tools, markets? And I know you can't talk about some of it, but what are you excited about that attorneys should be paying attention to?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we spend a lot of money on development, engineering, product, and technology more broadly. We have some really exciting things coming down the pike on our tech roadmap. And to just give you a preview for it, I mean, we've been around for 15 years, and we've always been a data-driven company. And because of that, we sit on top of a massive data asset in that we've seen tons of different case types. We've seen a lot of different expert witnesses. We've seen how expert witnesses interact with our clients, how doctors interact with our clients. And then we have this radar product that brings in third-party data. So we're really thinking about, and what's top of mind for us is, how can we leverage AI on top of this data asset to provide better solutions for our clients? And that's just a preview. Expect more announcements in the next few quarters.
I'm excited to hear. So certainly sounds like some significant time saving, which time is money, as Benjamin Franklin said. So based on your experience in finance, in law, and in leadership, what final nuggets of wisdom can you share with attorneys who want to grow smarter, build stronger cases, and lead with confidence in such a competitive industry?
Yeah, and I think this is an advice that can cross all industries. It's pretty universal, but what I would say is always be building your network and talking to peers and people outside of your industry, and do not ever stay in your lane or within your four walls of your firm, because there's a lot you can learn. You need to stay curious, relentlessly curious, and keep an open mind about change and about doing things differently. Take legal vendors, for example, or AI, like we just talked about it. There's no shortage of firms reaching out saying, hey, you should use our technology because we just raised a lot of venture funding, or we are going to make XYZ part of your workflow or life a lot easier. And ultimately, networking with other attorneys to understand who are the vendors those other attorneys have used and how did they implement them? What has their experience been? Can always pan out better than actually speaking to the vendors or that salesperson itself and figuring out, all right, like, is this someone that I should trust? How did you implement this into your firm? And I'd say, honestly, so many of my own best ideas and best solutions have come directly from conversations within my network. You can't assume you're going to solve every problem or spot every opportunity by yourself. Networking, getting outside of your lane and comfort zone to speak with others is absolutely key.
I couldn't agree with you more. So now it's time to move on to my favorite part of the podcast, and we call this the lightning round, where I ask you 10 questions. You just answer quickly whatever comes to mind. This is where people get to know you, like you, and trust you better because they're getting to know you on more of a personal level. Are you ready?
I'm excited.
Okay. So, Josh, what never fails to make you laugh?
On this one, the creative ads from our clients. They're some of the best consumer marketers out there and great at catching people's attention. I was in Denver recently, and Frank Azar is one of the prominent attorneys there. And he's built a brand for himself known as the Strong Arm. And that never gets old, but it has a great jingle to it and no one ever forgets it.
Like it. Okay. What's the best compliment you ever got?
Being called a politician for how I manage conflict and chaos.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Okay. So who is the person that you would trade places with for a day?
Guys, this is a good one. Jamie Dimon. I saw him speak at a conference recently in New York, and it was remarkable how sharp he was for being nearly 70 years old and how well-versed he was, not only in the excruciating detail of his business, but also in all the macro politics and everything else that is going on in the world.
Yeah, he's brilliant. That's why he's in the position that he's in, right? So what is your guilty pleasure?
I start off every morning eating something very sweet. And I know that sounds a little odd, but I'm typically a maniacally healthy individual. So this is kind of a vice for me.
Okay. Interesting. So what is the best gift that you have ever given someone?
I don't know that you actually qualify this as a gift, but I would say the engagement ring I bought for my fiance, now wife. And this is top of mind because we got married a few weeks ago. So
congratulations.
I had a lot of meeting. Thank you.
What was the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Stay in your lane. I feel like in your time in your professional career, sometimes you get people who want to keep things to their side of the house and make sure that you're working on the other side. And I think that's some of the worst advice. The only way you can learn and grow quickly is stepping outside of your comfort zone.
I had a business partner who was a Wharton grad. He told me that once. I'm not going to tell you what I told him back. Okay. So, what is the one thing that you wish you were better at dealing with?
Being more patient. I like to move quickly. I have really high aspirations for our business, for the people I work with. And sometimes I probably could be a little more patient.
Okay. What was your favorite childhood movie?
Remember the Titans. It's a classic. And I grew up in Northern Virginia, so the high school was close by. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. All right. Great movie. So what is the one book that changed your life?
Admittedly, I'm not a big reader, but I am an avid podcast listener. So one podcast that I've learned a lot from is Founders by David Senra. It's all about leaders, CEOs, founders of businesses across history.
And tell us something that most people don't know about you.
I'm a thrill junkie, and I enjoy skydiving, heli skiing, rock climbing, anything that brings adrenaline.
Wow. Amazing. Well, Josh, this has been wonderful to get to know you. Really enjoyed it. We're going to have you back when you have some more goodies to share with the audience. But can you please tell our listeners what's the best way to contact you and Expert Institute?
Yeah, sure thing. My contact information is on our website, and I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So you can find me there, shoot me a message, and would love to connect. And going back to what I said earlier, always trying to build my network.
It's expertinstitute.com?
That's right.
Got it. Okay, perfect. All right. So that concludes for today. Josh, thanks so much. Really, really enjoyed having you. And I can't wait to have you back. Signing off for today, Josh Konigsberg at the AGM Podcast.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the AGM Attorney Podcast. Now it's time to put these strategies into action and accelerate your growth. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time.